Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul. I am a nerd, and you are here with us today at the March, is it March already? The March 2014 Worldox Virtual User Group meeting. My son yesterday said, is it spring yet? Well, what was it? I guess today at school they announced that spring sports were starting, and it's muddy outside my house, which is where me and Leanne and Mary Jo are gathered today at the Pseudo Attorney Computer Systems office. For those of you who don't know, I live in a 140-year-old farmhouse, which is charming but has the disadvantage, the distinct disadvantage of being on a Michigan dirt road. And Michigan dirt roads aren't that bad. Well, okay, they are, but they're at their worst when we thaw. So I've got my mud boots on, and we're ready to go. Today, we are talking about relations, not weird Uncle Charlie who comes to Thanksgiving dinner, but how to relate files in Worldox to each other. And I got Mary Jo to smile on that one. Yeah, that's my goal. I've reached my goal for the day. And she's going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about the viewer, which is a way to look at files in Worldox without actually opening them up. So without further ado, we will start with this housekeeping. Now, this is where we would tell you where the bathrooms are if you were at a real live webinar, but instead we tell you how to get around. And that's what we're looking at here. This is your Gotowebinar meeting control center. And if you are not looking at this right now, that's probably because you've been here before and you know that this button here that looks like an arrow pointing to the right will slide this out of the way. So if this is covering up my screen, you can get rid of it by clicking this button, and as the arrow pointing to the right implies, it will slide this off your screen to the right. Now when you do that, this will turn into an arrow pointing to the left, and clicking it again will slide this back into focus. Why would you want to slide that back into focus? Well, if you're shy and you have a question, you can type it here, right where it says, enter a question for staff. That's Leanne. Well, it's me and Mary Jo, I suppose, but Leanne, our humble moderator, will notice that you have a question. She will wait for the exact opportune moment. She will interrupt myself or Mary Jo, and she will ask a question on your behalf. If you are not feeling shy, you don't need to type your question here. You can also hit this button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. And Leanne will do the same thing. She will be diligent in noticing that you have raised your hand, but instead of asking your question on your behalf, she will unmute you and let you ask your own question. So you can click here to raise your hand, or you can click here to type your question. Remember, if you're typing a question, hit send. Not hitting send will not get your question answered. Now, while we are answering your question, if you're unmuted, you can just keep asking follow-up questions as they arise, and we can have a conversation. If you are typing your question, all you need to do is keep typing any follow-up questions or any clarification questions here, and keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will keep asking your questions on your behalf until we get them answered. So, without any further ado, I'm going to press the magic button here and the magic button here, and I'm going to take us into Worldox, where Mary Jo is going to excite us with information about our relatives.
Yeah, I almost think that the weird Uncle Charlie story might be more interesting than relating files in Worldox, but who knows? For
a minute there, I thought you were going to say the weird Uncle Charlie is Paul.
Oh, hey, it's a whole new concept. Well, what I'm going to tell you about today is how to relate files to one another. You might have a main document and you want to have several other documents that relate to that, all tied together so that if I click on one, I can also see and get to those other related documents easily without having to navigate or research the files to find them. So I'm going to go in. I use this. I need keyboard and mouse, Paul, please. I used this just recently when I was putting together our document and training materials. I wanted to have the main document, there we go, listed, and then with like a table of contents, but then I wanted each of those documents that were also there to be related to it so that I could just look at it and I could get in there. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm going to go into the training and support section that we have, and I'm going to click on one of our indexes that I've created. So this particular one was my Practice Master Document Management and Doc Assembly Master Index. And so if I just click on this and highlight it and go down to my Relations tab down here at the bottom, you can see that I've got all of these different documents that are related to my master index for this particular Practice Master document. If I go down to this next one with GL, I have different documents that I've related to that particular document. Now the main document that you have is called the parent document, and then underneath that all these sub-documents are children. So they are child documents. And so to set this up, you have to first choose which document you want to be your parent document, and then you can add different documents down below either by dragging them or pulling them in. And they don't have to be on the same list. You can have your parent document highlighted, and then you can also go over and you can open a new list. You can see Paul's got several of them open up here, but you can actually start a new filter up here and look for another document on another screen, choose it, and relate it to the one that you originally highlighted on another screen. So that makes it kind of nice too. So let's say that this Practice Master Guide is already in an index or a relation. I guess I should show you that too. If I have a document that I've already related to a parent file and I click on one of the children, it tells me what document is the parent. So I can, it's the reverse. So if I can see if there's any other documents that are related to, or which document this one is related to. Boy, that's like a mouthful. But here's another one so I can see what the parent index is for that document. So let me see if I can find one that doesn't have any kind of a document relationship now. So here's one. So this quick start document here, this checklist, doesn't have any relations. So if I highlight that one and then I want to actually relate files to it, I can just come in and we can start a new parent relation. So I will click and I will bring this down, and this will be the parent document. Oops, I guess I don't have to drag that. So I can relate, well, let me get back up here and make this the parent. And so now I have that document in here. So my quick start guide is my parent, and then I can relate this document to it by dragging it in here. It will ask me, do I want just this one that's highlighted, highlight this, or both files? You've got a couple of choices here, but I just want the one that I've checked, not the one that's highlighted. So I can say continue, and then that will add that relationship for me, and then I will have it on there. I don't know why it's not putting it down in here for me. Let me go back up here, and let's relate this. Pull it down. We want to have that. We want to continue. And it's not building my relationships, Paul. I'm not sure what's going on here. Let's take off my parent and see what's happened here. Usually it'll just pop up. I say I want the ones checked. We'll say OK, and it drags it in. So I'm not sure if I'm opening the wrong one or what. Let's go up to one I've already done. Yeah, let me show you from the one that's completed. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what I'm doing in here that's different. Let me get into an index. Here we go. So I have one in here so I can build that relations. Maybe I didn't do my relations tab. So I can open up all the relations in there. I can show them down on my screen here. If I wanted to add more files to this one, again, I could go to another list and I could just drag another file down in here. And click that, and it will go ahead and add to my relationships on here. You can change an existing document that's already in here. So if I wanted to make this child document the parent document instead, I can then click this little box up here, and I can do that. You can open it up so that it's going to show you. Whoops, that's a difference. Well, I'm sorry, Paul, I'm out of that completely. It's opening up your PowerPoint. There we go. So I can open the document. I just had some other windows open. It's all.
No, it's because PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's like, what in the world? But here it will actually open my document so I can see that. So that's what the open will do. If I get back into Worldox, and you can view things, you can unrelate things. So if I highlight a document and don't want that particular one related anymore, I can click on relate. It will take it out. So there's a lot of different things here.
To you, Mary Jo, in this particular example, do you have any that are grandchildren?
I don't.
Because you can have multi-layered relationships. So you might have a master index that points to the 4 sub-indexes, if you will, and those 4 sub-indexes can then point to the documents underneath. So you can, it's not just a flat relationship. And I know we have at least one client, Stout, that is doing all sorts of things to relate documents at many levels, which I think is also pretty
And
cool.
then I guess for my example, I didn't do that far because I didn't need to. But you're right. You can do it even, do it farther.
It's almost like creating folders in folders in folders, if you will. It's just a different way to relate those documents. And the thing about it is that it can cross the boundaries of different matters, different profile groups, and yet tie all these documents together into one tree with children and parents and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and things that I'm way too young to even be considering. Are there any questions, Leanne?
No questions.
No questions. Okay.
All right, Paul, it's all on you for viewer.
It's all on me for viewer. Well, I am one who loves to know where I'm going before I go there. And so, and I'm going to tie this into Practice Master as well. If we go to a client file in Practice Master and use this button over here, display Worldox documents, those of you that don't have Practice Master, you'll have to just imagine why this viewer would be so important in this instance. In this view, if I open one of these emails, which I will then immediately close because I don't know what's in it, I am then, I'm not back in that list in Worldox. Worldox will only open that window to view those emails and documents that are tied to that particular client for me to either look at and close or for me to look at and then open a document. And once I open the document, it closes that window. Now, that's not true of Worldox normally. Normally in Worldox, you can have a file list open and open a document and come back to that file list and open another document, go back to that file list. But for those of our clients that have Practice Master and are using this link to connect to Worldox for whatever matter they have highlighted and use this, once you open that document, Practice Master goes away, or Worldox goes away. And so you need to keep coming in here and keep opening it up if the one that you got wasn't right. So that's a perfect example of where the viewer comes in handy. But I think everybody's run into a situation where they look at a long list of documents or maybe a whole list of emails and they don't know which one is the exact one that they want. And the viewer allows you to look at that particular document without opening it. So you don't have to load Word and then close up the document and come back and wait for all that to happen. You just hit the viewer. Now you have a button up here and you have a pane down here. So if we look at the viewer down here, we can scroll down and see this particular document. Or we can also simply open this up. Now I'm going to switch back over out of this client and I'm going to actually get into Worldox the regular way, and I'm going to go over to Mary Jo's training folder because I don't know what I'll get into that might be confidential if I just look at a client. So we'll go back here and we'll start at the top and we'll open up this view screen. Now if I use the viewer down here, I can do all of the things that I can do with the viewer up here, but sometimes it's better to have more real estate, if you will. Now, as you can see, I have the same buttons, and we'll go through these buttons and tell you what they mean. And we have the ability to scroll through and look at the document. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. You can also launch, if you decide that you're in the viewer down here and you want to load the other viewer, you can launch it right from here. Or you can just go here to begin with. I'll go back to the full list, and I'll hit the viewer. And the difference here is that I'm launching a separate window. At this point, I'm actually in the viewer, but if I minimize, I'm still in Worldox. And if I go back to the viewer, well, let me go back that way. There it is. If I go back to the viewer, I can go back and forth between them. But more importantly, I have more real estate, and I can see more. I can tell more about what it is that I want to look at. So I might get to the top of an email correspondence link that I'm looking at in Worldox and say, well, which of these emails is the one I want to reply to? And I'll just go to the first one, and kind of scan through. Now, and I can go to the previous one. Well, I meant to stop at that last one. I can just go back one. Another thing is that PDFs, when you are in this view here, this collapsed view, PDFs will give you a link that says click here to view. And they will not come into focus. The assumption here is, hey, he's looking at these and he's just kind of quickly jumping from one to the other. And so he doesn't want to look at the PDF unless he specifically says to. So if we go down here and then come back up, it'll give you this click to view. Now there are settings that can be done. Your administrator can take care of them for you if you're not an administrator. But there, you can have a setting that tells you how you want this to come up or when you want just this thumbnail to come up. Now why would you want the thumbnail to come up? Well, if you're looking at really, really big PDFs and you want to just scan between them and you want to be able to skip by one just based on its name and only view it when you want to because it takes so long to open it up for viewing, then you'll want to set this to only show you the thumbnail. It's done this way so that when you're working with huge PDFs, we have some clients that work with 200, 300, 400-page PDFs and lots of them, and they want to be able to scan very quickly through them until they find the name that they're looking for, and then they want to start clicking the link to actually look at the PDF. Okay? So that's something to consider. I'm going to go back into the full screen view just so I can show you some of these other buttons. You can set the defaults. I have my initial view set to fit to width. If it was fit to read, it'd look like that. If it was fit to window, I think it'd be even smaller because now the whole page is fitting in the window. I like fit to width because I'm old and my classes aren't doing as well as they used to, so I like it to be as big as it can, and I'll do the scrolling if I want to. We also have a default. You can, once you get it set, and once you get it set so that it either pops big or minimized, well, it's not popping minimized here because I've got fit to width set. But if I had fit to screen, I could show it in just a window. Once you've got those things set, you can click this, click whatever you want, and make sure you've got this set the way you want, either maximized or window size. And then it'll save those, and those will always be the defaults until you change them again. We can copy, we can print a draft. Now this is going to be a print that if you were looking at a Word document, it's not going to load Word and do certain things that Word would do from a printing standpoint. If it's an Adobe document, it's going to print pretty much exactly the way it would appear. A Word document will print pretty much the way it would appear, but we're using some viewer technology that Worldox is licensed, and so it may not do exactly everything printing-wise for a Word document or certain other things the way you would if you were going to print a final copy. You can search, so we can tell it we want to search for certain text, more appropriate in a Word document, although this one's probably a document that's been OCR'd, so I could search in here, and I can just type in version, and it should take me to the, yeah, there we go. I was going to say, I thought maybe it wasn't a OCR document. We can take to the next occurrence, and that's the only one. So they must only mention the word version once in this document. These fit to window, fit width, and fit to read, those are the same settings you saw over here, only when you're setting them over here, you're setting up the defaults, and when you set them over here, you're just setting them for that one session. And then once you do find the document you like, maybe it's this one here, you click open without having to go back to Worldox, and it'll open the document for you. So that's the viewer. I know a lot of people don't even know this exists. We'll go into offices and we'll talk to somebody that's been using Worldox for years and years, and I'll say, well, why don't you open up the viewer? And they're like, well, what is the viewer? So for those of you who've never seen it before, I think you'll find that it has certain application, and it can do certain things to make your finding of the right document much quicker, so that once you do find it and open it up, you have more time to work on it. Any questions on that, Leanne?
Nope, no questions, Paul.
Awesome. Well, either we're really boring and everybody's falling asleep, or we're just plain old explaining as well as we can, and everyone understands, and they're ready to go back to their desks and start trying this stuff out. So that's it for this month, a short and sweet meeting. Next month, We're going to talk about checking out and checking in documents, how to take a document out of Worldox and set it in such a way so that nobody else messes with it till you get it back in there. That's called checking out. And Mary Jo's going to talk about that, I believe, and I'm going to talk about the indexer. The indexer is this mysterious thing that most people don't even understand what it is, and a lot of people have never even seen it. And so I'm just going to give a little bit of background on what it is and what it has to do with Worldox and why it always has to be running and how it functions. So that, for those of you who are nerdy, that should be interesting. The rest of you can tune in and listen to Mary Jo talk about checking out and checking in. I do want to show that you can always look at what's happened in the past by going to our website, www.attorneycomputersystems.com. You don't have to write that down. It'll appear at the end of this video if you're watching it. And I know those of you who are watching live are thinking, what do you mean watching it? Well, this is what I'm talking about. If you go to our website and scroll down past my tie and my shirt, you will see all the Worldox virtual user group meetings we've ever had. You'll have a link to register for the next one, and unless it happens to be within a day or two of the current one, because that's the amount of time it takes us to get these recordings up there, this will turn into a link for the next one when Patty puts up the recording of this one that we're listening to right now, that we're listening to live. And every other Worldox virtual user group meeting that we've ever done in a recorded format, because we started recording at a certain point in time, is here, along with our Tabs 3 and Practice Master virtual user group meetings and the coffee pot webinars that I give every month on some exciting topic of interest to people that use Worldox or Tabs or Practice Master, like document management in version 17 is what we talked about last month. Mary Jo has her very own series of little teeny 4-minute snippets of information that we call e-bites. And then we have that tremendously exciting Paul and Mary Jo show. So there's a lot of content here, and you can always get to the virtual user group meetings in their recorded form, usually within about 3, 4, or 5 days after us having performed them live. So I guess that's all I have to say. Everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, rest of the week, rest of the month, and we will see you next month when we talk about checking in and out and the indexer. Bye, everybody.